Hong Kong's leader says that he wants to tighten national security legislation as soon as possible to include offenses such as treason, insurrection, and espionage. John Lee says the city cannot afford to wait any longer to build on Beijing's national security law that was enacted after a widespread crackdown on mass protests.
Bad-mouthing, political attacks will continue. That is exactly why I want the government to be up and in full gear to explain what we are doing here, loud and clear, confidently and rightly. Tell the world we are just protecting ourselves from your attacks.
Patrick Falk has more from Hong Kong.
Well, it is going to make some difference, certainly, and the government isn't wasting any time to set this in motion. The legislature is going to be gathering to kick off this consultation process, and John Lee has pledged previously to enact Article 23 by the end of this year. He reiterated that it needed to be done as soon as possible because the existing legislation that is in place, namely the Beijing imposed national security law, he said, was like a car with parts missing. Article 23 will notably include laws against sedition, espionage, and it will also ban foreign political organizations from conducting any sort of political activity here. There was some concern expressed about the length of the consultation period, which will last until the end of February. That means there's only 1 month compared to the 3 months people were given in 2002 when the government first tried to roll out Article 23 before it was ultimately shelved. Remember, Article 23 is part of Hong Kong's mini-constitution, which has been in place since the handover in 1997. It is required to enact this legislation, and John Lee said that it's been waiting for 26 years to do so today.
Now, Andrew Leung is an independent China strategist, and he is with us from Hong Kong. Sir, let's get to the heart of the matter. Pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong will see this as a further tightening of Beijing's control of Hong Kong. Agree or disagree?
Well, this is total misunderstanding what one country, two systems is all about. Because don't forget, the formula begins with one country. And then the Hong Kong's constitution includes the Article 23 provision right from the very start, 26 years ago. But then when an attempt was made to introduce it in 2003, because for lack of sufficient explanation, for lack of a sufficient atmosphere in the society, the attempt had to be abandoned. And it's now over 23 more years. And then a lot of loopholes remain to be plugged. And Beijing has learned a bitter lesson as a result of the umbrella movement, and then more recently, the Black Card riots, threatening not only law and order in Hong Kong, but also Beijing's sovereignty over Hong Kong, because part of the protests demanded independence for Hong Kong. And then lots of indications suggest that there are the foreign forces were aiding and abetting all these protests. So Beijing learned a bitter lesson, Hong Kong learned a bitter lesson, and now's the time to plug the loopholes.
What would Hong Kong's leader be able to do with these proposed laws that he currently cannot do?
Well, because many countries, many territories have national security legislation, including the United States, all the European countries. But then, of course, the safeguard in Hong Kong is Hong Kong's robust judiciary, because our rule of law has got a very high international reputation. Sitting on our courts are foreign judges, even the high courts and the Court of Final Appeal. As in the case of the current case of the trial of Jimmy Lai, the process has been extremely robust and open, because, it's an open trial. So there are safeguards. But of course, the enactment of the national security law is not peculiar to Hong Kong, as I said. It's everywhere.
Well, so the legislation as it currently stands creates a new sabotage offense of unlawfully using a computer or electronic system to endanger national security. Unlawfully using a computer or electronic system. You see, it's things like that that will fuel the argument of pro-democracy activists that this is not just about national security, it's about political control.
Well, the so-called pro-democracy activists, in fact, that you will look at the demands, part of the demand, of course, is greater universal suffrage. But the irony was that universal suffrage, one man, one vote, was offered to them, but it was rejected because the one man, one vote offer had to comply with the Hong Kong's mini constitution, which is that the candidate had to be pre-screened. And then the offer was initiated by Beijing on Beijing's initiative. It's never included in the joint declaration with Britain handing over Hong Kong. It wasn't there. It was Beijing's initiative to offer one man, one vote, but it was rejected even though the conditions were in compliance with the Hong Kong's mini constitution. So there was a lot of misunderstanding there. But be that as it may, these are glaring loopholes: treason, insurrection, sabotage, and espionage. Well, these are the kind of offenses which are included in many national security laws around the world.
Andrew Leung, thank you very much for joining us in the program this hour.